Discovered. The incredible moment when a cleaning lady helped 6-year-old twins find their voice. In the smallest of suburban neighborhoods, a whisper echoed louder than the rest. It was a profound story as Sarah, a 35-year-old single mother, struggled under the pressure of juggling 2 jobs to keep her lively 6-year-old twins, Lily and Jake, nourished and safe. Each day, as she clocked in at the diner, she felt the heavy gaze of her neighbors, their judgments sharper than knives. They couldn't understand her relentless fight to provide a better life. And amidst all this, her dreams of being an artist grew dim, buried beneath bills and worry. One evening, after an exhausting shift, Sarah returned home to find Lily and Jake slumped on the couch, faces crumpled in frustration. "Why can't we be like the other kids, Mom?" Jake asked, eyes wide, betraying a hurt he didn't yet understand. "They laugh at me." Lily mirrored her brother's expression, a mix of sadness and anger. Sarah felt her heart ache. She opened her mouth but no words came. Unable to shield them from the world's harshness, tears threatened to spill. "It's okay to feel this way," she finally whispered, touching each forehead gently, in an attempt to ease their pain. Unbeknownst to them, Nancy, the soft-spoken cleaning lady from the community center, was nearby, wiping down the tables. She caught every word, and her heart tangled with theirs. "Can I share something?" Nancy hesitated, standing in the doorway like a guardian angel. "I once felt alone too." Her soft voice filled the room, breaking through the heavy silence. The twins looked up, curiosity piqued. That night, a flicker of connection ignited, as Nancy poured stories of courage into their hearts. In the following weeks, her storytelling sessions transformed their evenings. Each tale was like a magic spell, slowly cracking the shells of shyness surrounding Lily and Jake. They began to beam with newfound confidence, slowly stepping into their own identities. But just as hope blossomed, school announced a talent show, an opportunity laced with both excitement and anxiety. The twins stood on the precipice of a thrilling challenge. "What if they laugh at us?" Lily whispered, close to tears. Nancy, sensing their turmoil, clenched her fists, wrestling with her own regrets of unfulfilled dreams. She had given up on her aspirations of becoming a writer, yet each story she shared with the twins rekindled something dormant inside her. As the talent show night approached, Nancy barricaded her fears, fully willing to help the twins confront their insecurities. But what if they froze on stage? What if they retreated into the shadows once again? It was now a moment of truth, with the entire community gathered, not knowing the transformative journey leading to this night. "Nancy, this is it," Jake whispered, uncertainty etched on his face as their names were announced. The spotlight washed over them, and Sarah held her breath, the tension palpable. From the stage, they looked out at the crowd, a mixture of hope and terror swirling within them. Would they risk it all or shy away? The audience leaned in as connections formed, hearts racing, waiting to see the twins bloom or fade. In that heartbeat, everything teetered on the edge, and so did Nancy's chance for redemption that she never saw coming. Would she step forward and embrace her own voice alongside the twins? The air crackled with anticipation, leaving everyone breathless for what would unfold next. As the lights beamed down on them, Jake clutched Lily's hand tightly. The crowd was a blur. Faces were a mix of anticipation and curiosity. Sarah's heart raced, but her eyes were locked on her children. In that moment, every worry faded away, leaving only the love she felt swirling like a warm blanket around her. Jake opened his mouth to speak, but the words lodged in his throat. Panic flickered across his face. "You can do it," Lily whispered, her voice barely above a whisper, but infused with determination. Nancy stood just off stage, taking a deep breath. Could she really let go of her fears now? Having spent so much time lifting the twins, she suddenly felt the weight of all her unrecaptured dreams. The need to share her own story surged within her, an echo of Lily and Jake's courage. Just then, she stepped forward, her heart pounding against her ribcage, compelling her to take a chance. Together, she said softly to the twins, shifting the gaze of the audience onto herself, "We'll do this together." With Nancy now standing beside them, The fear faded a little. It became a shared experience, their trembling hands now anchoring each other. The audience, sensing the shift, leaned closer as if drawn into an intimate circle of trust. The tension in the room felt electric, crackling with potential and unvoiced hopes. "Hi, we are," Jake stammered, then swallowed hard. The stage seemed enormous, but he took a step forward. Emboldened, "I'm Jake. And this is my sister, Lily. We'd like to tell you a story." As they began, they paused for a moment, encouraged by the supportive murmurs from the crowd, some calling out words of affirmation. Suddenly, the words flowed out like a wave rushing to shore. The story they crafted together wasn't just a story about dragons and castles. It was about finding your voice against all odds. It mirrored their journey, reflecting their fears and the hope they had gathered with Nancy's help. And then there was laughter. It bubbled up like a brook on a warm day, washing away the worry. The rhythm of their voices intertwined harmoniously, weaving a tapestry that captured the audience's hearts. Sarah could feel tears of pride rise up as she watched her kids shine. This was more than a performance. It was liberation. The twins were not just sharing a story. They were reclaiming their power and stepping boldly into the light. When they finally finished, the applause washed over them like a warm summer rain, filling every crevice of doubt. Parents who once looked on with skepticism now beamed with pride. The twins searched for their mother and found her, tears in her eyes, beaming with encouragement. Nancy stood close, radiating the kind of joy that flows from finally following your heart. But as they bowed, a voice rang out unexpectedly from the crowd, sending a shiver through their collective moment. "You don't have to hide anymore." The room fell silent, a collective breath held, as all eyes turned to see who had spoken. The weight of those words hung in the air like the glimmer of a spark igniting a fire. What did this mean for Nancy? Was there a chance that someone in the community still saw the doubts lurking inside her? What truth would come next for the trio as they stepped off that stage, forever changed? The silence in the room felt heavy, as if every soul present was grappling with the fringes of that unexpected proclamation. Jake and Lily looked toward the voice, their joy intertwined with uncertainty. Nancy's heart raced. Had she unwittingly laid bare her truth? The woman who spoke was a familiar face. Clara, a spirited single mother from the neighborhood, stood with her hands planted on her hips, eyes piercing through the thick fog of tension. "You don't have to hide anymore," she called out again, this time with more force, urging her words to take root. "What do you mean?" Jake finally stuttered, the crowd stilling in anticipation. The moment felt pivotal, teetering on the edge of revelation. Clara stepped closer, her features softening. "We see you, Nancy. You've held back for so long, and it's time to let that part of you shine." Her tone was warm, threading through the doubt like a soft melody. "You used to tell stories just like these kids. We know you have magic in those hands." Lily's grip on Jake tightened. They turned to their mother, a question in their eyes. The warmth of encouragement wrapped around Nancy, but she felt cold pinpricks of vulnerability creep in. The audience, sensing a shift, leaned in further. The laughter and applause began to morph into an expectancy. In that moment, Nancy saw not only the twins, but also decades of her own silence reflected in their faces. She swallowed hard. What if her voice wavered, fighting against the tide of doubt? "What if I fail? What if I stumble?" "Then you get back up," Clara exclaimed, the fervor in her voice electrifying the air. "You teach them that it's okay to be scared but still be brave." "Isn't that what this is about?" Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd, and a few heads nodded in affirmation. Nancy's chest heaved as she drew in a breath filled with possibilities. The weight of her old fears shifted slightly, a crack appearing in the armor she'd worn for so long. "But what if I don't know where to begin?" she asked, her voice softer now, more honest. The crowd held their breath again, a sacred pause wrapped in collective hope. Finally, Clara responded, "Begin wherever you are. Share your stories. We're here and we'll support you." Her sincerity was like a lighthouse beam cutting through the fog of uncertainty. It felt as if the audience shifted, becoming an unseen chorus rallying behind Nancy. The resilience they had all witnessed through Jake and Lily's brave performance shone brighter than any fear she carried. A flicker of courage ignited within her. Jake and Lily exchanged glances. Their own determination mirrored in each other's eyes, and suddenly, they stepped forward again, inviting their mother to join them in the light. "Mom," Lily urged gently, "we did this together. You don't need to hide. You can be with us." Nancy's breath caught, and she looked at her children, pure, unfiltered love in their eyes. She could hear the echoes of the crowd's encouragement. Heart racing, she stepped closer, feeling the warmth of her children's presence enveloping her. "I want to," she finally admitted, her voice growing firmer, "I want to share our stories." Without warning, another voice broke through the crowd. "Then let us hear them." It was a man from the back, smiling brightly, and suddenly a ripple of agreement swept the room. As excited shouts encouraged her onward, Nancy felt the barriers within start to crumble. What would she say? What stories of laughter, grief, and hope would fill the empty spaces once occupied by fear? With a comforting squeeze from Lily and Jake, she stepped up to the front of the stage, looking out into the faces before her, her heart beating wildly with a newfound trust in herself. The weight of the past felt lighter, and for the first time, facing the crowd didn't fill her with dread. What happened next would send them all on a journey she had kept hidden for far too long. Nancy stood at the edge of the stage, the room buzzing with an energy she hadn't felt in years. Faces she knew and some she didn't created a tapestry of support, woven tightly with the threads of anticipation and hope. She could feel their eyes on her, waiting for the first words to spill from her lips. She took a deep breath, her mind racing to gather the scattered fragments of her past. Memories swirled around, many shadowy and painful, but some shining like treasures waiting to be unearthed. "Once upon a time," she began, her voice trembling but filling the air with a quiet strength. Jake and Lily leaned in, their wide eyes sparkling with excitement. They could sense the moment was significant, like the beginning of an adventure. Nancy's heart fluttered, but she embraced the sensation. This was her moment, a chance to step into the light. "Years ago, I used to sit by the fire with my little sister," she continued, her voice gaining momentum, "and we would tell stories. Stories of brave heroes, mischievous animals, and places filled with magic." The images danced in her mind, sparking a warmth she had long forgotten. She could almost hear her sister's laughter intertwining with her own. Slowly, the crowd began to lean forward, engrossed. Nancy's gaze shifted from her children to the sea of expectant faces. Every smile and nod fueled her growing confidence. "One story I remember," she hesitated, the weight of vulnerability still hovering, but she pressed on. "It's about a girl who thought she could do anything. She believed in the impossible." A ripple of understanding passed through the audience, and she saw it reflected in Clara's encouraging nod. But Nancy felt a catch in her throat. There was also a time when she felt lost, scared to chase her dreams, just like I did. She could feel the collective heartbeat of encouragement vibrating in the room. The unspoken connection between them transcended her fears. But ultimately, she learned that it's okay to stumble. It's okay to fall because you can always rise again. The crowd erupted in gentle applause, but this time, it wasn't about clapping for performance. It felt like a reminder that they were all in this together. Hearts were opening, barriers falling. With a renewed sense of purpose, Nancy dove deeper. She began to weave in her life's tapestry the struggles, the victories, and the love that held it all together. As she spoke, she caught glimpses of the twins beaming with pride, their eyes glistening with admiration. Every word pulled her closer to them, and each story was a thread tying her past, present, and future together. But then, a flash of fear ripped through her thoughts. What if she laid bare too much? What if sharing these stories opened old wounds instead of healing? Steeling herself against that wave of doubt, she pressed on, holding fast to the warmth of her children's presence, allowing their love to anchor her. Just as the momentum built, a small hand shot up from the audience. "Nancy, what happened next?" A curious voice piped up, breaking the spell. The crowd chuckled softly, but that simple question struck a chord within her. It wasn't just a request for a story. It was a testament to the shared journey unfolding right there before them. Trembling slightly, she looked out over the audience, feeling the weight of their expectations mingling with excitement. She took a deep breath to center herself, knowing that the next chapter of her story could open the door not just to herself, but to everyone in that room. What could she reveal next? In that moment, she realized the journey was just beginning. Would it lead to more stories? More connections? Or perhaps a truth she hadn't yet been ready to face? Nancy looked out at the audience, her heart racing as that innocent question hung in the air. What happened next? It was a simple query, yet it sent ripples of warmth through her soul. She could tell this wasn't just about her anymore, it was about everyone who sat there, eager to hear where the story would go. What did happen next? She pondered, her memories stirring vividly. After that girl learned to rise again, she took a leap, venturing into a world filled with challenges and unexpected friends. The room held its breath, her voice weaving a spell of curiosity. One day, Nancy continued, she discovered something truly magical. She stumbled upon a woman, a cleaning lady at a local school, who had a voice as big as the sky. Laughter bubbled up from certain corners of the crowd, and she smiled, igniting the glimmer of shared experience. Every day, this woman sang while she worked. Her songs were not just tunes. They were dreams turned into melodies. The girl would listen from behind a door, captivated by the way music transformed the mundane into something extraordinary. She found herself slipping into that memory, feeling the warmth of sunbeams that danced across the floor as they filtered through stained glass. The cleaning lady had stories too of hope and resilience. The girl would often ask her questions, and finally, one day, she found the courage to sing along. Her fingers played with the microphone, mimicking the gestures of reaching out, and she locked eyes with Jake and Lily. They were enraptured, soaking in every word. It wasn't perfect, she admitted, a bittersweet smile on her face. But it was real and it felt good. The singing carried a weight that couldn't be expressed in words alone. As she described that moment, she felt the audience begin to resonate with the emotions swirling inside her. And in that melody, the girl found a part of herself she had lost, a voice. A belief that she could be seen, heard, and, most importantly, understood. The applause had quieted down until soft murmurs filled the space. She could almost feel their hearts sinking together, an unspoken understanding of longing and release. Nancy was surprised when a few familiar faces started to nod, as if they were too recalling their own journeys of finding their voices amidst the noise of life. What the girl didn't realize, she continued, was that she was not the only one with dreams waiting to be realized. She paused, surveying the room again. She learned that everyone holds a bit of magic inside. It doesn't matter how small or insignificant it seems, what matters is believing in it. Tears pricked her eyes as she glanced at her children again. They deserved to hear not just stories, but the truth behind them. Sometimes, she whispered, we need a little push from someone we least expect to ignite that belief. The crowd seemed to inhale collectively, soaking in her words like the fresh scent of rain on concrete. Nancy could sense a shift happening, an emotional bond being forged through the shared stories of struggle and hope. Suddenly, Clara's voice rang out again. But what did the cleaning lady teach her about dreams? The question cut through Nancy's thoughts, and her heart skipped a beat. She could feel a new wave of warmth washing over her, that same jolt of remembrance. She taught her that dreams are alive and can grow, but they need care and support just like plants in a garden. As she reflected on those words, a bittersweet tension filled the air. And it's never too late to plant a seed, even when it feels like you're starting over. The room buzzed with emotion, and in that moment, a deep connection burned bright between them all. But just as Nancy prepared to unveil more, a flicker of apprehension ignited in her chest. What if some seeds were meant to stay buried? As she stared into Clara's encouraging eyes, realization struck her. Would revealing the last pieces of her story bring fear or freedom? The unexpected loud clap of applause broke her thoughts. More, someone called out, their voice rich with desire for connection. Something in her shifted. She could feel the eagerness swelling within the crowd, pushing her to delve deeper. Yet, lingering thoughts of vulnerability held her back. What lay beyond this shiny surface? Could revealing more truly change everything? With determination threading through her heart, Nancy took a deep breath. The cleaning lady she began was more than just a voice. She was a catalyst for change. Her name was Marie, and together, they crafted a bond that transcended their differences. The laughter of children at play echoed through the memory, amplifying her warmth. Every afternoon, the girl would linger longer, and one day, she noticed a twist in Maria's smile. There was sadness buried deep beneath that laughter, a softness in the way she swept the floor. Curiosity bubbled in the girl, urging her to ask, "What dreams are you hiding, Marie?" A ripple of anticipation danced across the audience, and Nancy could see it in their eyes, the recognition that dreams often pushed us to our limits while hiding in the shadows. Marie hesitated at first. Nancy said softly, but then she began to share her own song of loss and hope. She had once dreamed of being a singer, performing on stages illuminated by the glow of bright lights. A hush fell over the crowd, their breaths held tight. But life unfolded differently. A family to support, responsibilities stacked higher than those dreams. Yet, she kept singing. Nancy continued, her voice steady and full of heart. Her dreams weren't dead. They were simply resting. And in that unguarded moment, the girl learned that everyone carries hidden weight of shame, of fear, of dreams deferred. As she spun the words, a hush spilled over the audience, those tears of empathy reflecting in every eye, reminding Nancy of her own struggles. She locked eyes with Jake and Lily once more. Their wide gazes exchanged silent understandings. Marie taught the girl that sometimes, just giving voice to your pain like watering a plant can help it flourish into something beautiful. Laughter bubbled up once more, rich with shared experience. Nancy smiled amid the memories. Footsteps turned into songs. Broomsticks transformed into microphones. They created little concerts amidst the dust, with the girl's shy voice growing bolder until it reverberated against the walls. The walls felt alive, echoing the adventure anchored in each corner of her soul. But there was a moment, one defining moment. Nancy said, her heart tightening. The day before the school's annual talent show, she invited Marie to join her. "Let us do this together," she pleaded, the fire in her heart blazing bright enough to chase shadows away. A sigh swept through the crowd. Nancy's heart raced as she placed a hand over her heart. Marie hesitated, fear clutching her throat. "What if I fail?" she asked, the vulnerability palpable in her voice. Nancy leaned forward, the intimacy of shared fears crackling in the air. And in that split second, the girl learned that failing sometimes mattered less than trying. "At least we'll sing together," she reassured her, the warmth of courage spilling over. "Let us make magic, even if it's only for ourselves." The gasps she elicited seemed to ignite her spirit all the more. There was power in that story, the reminder that it was fear and not ability that stopped them from shining. Then came that night of the talent show, she added, excitement bubbling in her chest. The stage was set, the spotlight pulsing with promises of acceptance. And so, hand in hand, they stepped into the light. She found herself longing to divulge the next part. But could she? Would they understand the weight of that moment, the beautifully terrifying tension that filled the air as they began to sing together? A melding of voices intertwining? "Life has this funny way of pushing you to face your fears," Nancy said, her smile somber yet hopeful. What followed, though, was an unexpected turn. They learned that facing those fears together could make all the difference. More applause erupted in the quiet room, wrapping her in warmth again. But what unfolded on that stage remained a knot in her throat. What if this time she slipped into her own vulnerability? Would she dare to share the rawness of their moment, the joy, the fear, and everything that lay within? Could she be brave enough to reveal what truly happened when they embraced the spotlight? The audience waited on bated breath, their anticipation palpable, and for the first time, Nancy recognized the power that lay not just in sharing dreams, but in the truth that came from realizing one's voice mattered more than anything. What would happen when their dreams intertwined, and the fear that echoed began to fade away. As the stage lights brightened, illuminating the tiny figures of Nancy and Marie, feelings cascaded through the crowd. The air was thick with energy, crackling like electricity before a storm, each person holding their breath. It felt as if the world outside faded away, leaving only the magic brewed in that moment. Nancy's heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She could feel Marie's hand trembling in hers. But there was something undeniable, a spark of courage igniting between them. Together, she whispered, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. Marie nodded, her gaze shifting to the audience. In those flickering lights and faces, she saw the same dreams she had buried for so long mirrored back at her. The tension released just a little as the first note broke free from her lips, a hesitant sound that grew bolder with every breath. Their voices wove together, entwining like threads in a tapestry. The song was one of love, of dreams revitalized. A melody that spoke of joy and sorrow, a story shared between two souls who had learned to trust one another. The harmony resonated through the auditorium, each note a declaration of resilience. As they sang, Nancy caught Jake and Lily's eyes in the front row. Their wide smiles lit up the room like sunshine breaking through clouds. In that moment, she knew she wasn't just sharing a story. She was teaching them that it was okay to step into the light, no matter how frightening it felt. The crowd began to sway, lost in the energy of the performance. Laughter and tears mingled in the air as Marie, feeling the buoyancy of the moment, closed her eyes and let her heart lead her voice free. This is what it feels like to be alive, she realized, breaking free of years weighed down by unexpressed fears. But then, just as the chorus soared, a small voice from the back cut through the atmosphere like a knife. "You're not good enough." The words stung like fresh cuts, and a wave of silence washed over the room. Nancy's stomach dropped. She could see the color drain from Maria's face as if the words enveloped them both in darkness. But in that instant something shifted. Instead of collapsing under the weight of doubt, Marie stood taller. "No, I am enough," she shouted, her voice rebounding off the walls, mingling with Nancy's. "This moment is ours." With renewed strength, they plunged back into the song, each note defying negativity, their intertwined voices rising higher, steadier. The audience erupted in applause, a tidal wave of support cascading toward the stage. In that passionate vortex, Nancy felt a thrill of triumph and vulnerability. They had stepped boldly into their dream and were reclaiming their voices, not just for themselves but for every dreamer silenced by doubt. As their final note hung in the air, a moment of absolute silence followed before the room exploded with cheer. Tears streamed down Marie's face as she caught her breath. She had faced the demons of her past and emerged victorious. Exhilaration coursed through Nancy as she gazed around the room. They were all part of this magic, this transformation. But as the applause continued, a nagging thought settled in her mind. What would it take to keep this momentum alive? How could they help others find their voices and dreams amid the noise of the world? With that question swirling through her thoughts, she looked back at Marie. There was no denying it. Their journey was just beginning. The applause faded, and a hush swept through the audience, eager for what came next. What if we didn't just share our story? Nancy began, her heart racing with anticipation. What if we reached out, created a community where everyone could find their voice? The glimmer in her eyes reflected the promise of something new. The audience leaned in, drawn by her infectious enthusiasm and hope. And as the possibilities unfolded, they realized something profound. What if the stage wasn't just for them, but for everyone? The room buzzed with energy, the clamor of excitement wrapping around Nancy and Marie like a warm blanket. They reveled in the joy of their performance and in the possibility that lay ahead. But as they stepped back from the edge of the stage, the reality of their words began to sink in. How do we even begin? Maria's voice was a whisper, but the weight of her question was palpable. Her eyes glimmered with uncertainty, a stark contrast to the steel determination she had shown moments ago. Together, Nancy replied, mirroring the same conviction from their performance. There was something about this moment, about this potential. Felt bigger than just them. We need a plan. We need to find others who feel the way we do. Marie nodded slowly, processing the thoughts. Like a workshop? A space where people can come together and express themselves. Yes, exactly. Nancy's eyes lit up. We can have open mic nights, workshops, everything. Let us invite everyone. Anyone who has ever felt small, who has ever felt scared to be heard. We can create a movement. The idea hung in the air, thrilling yet daunting. But there was a spark ignited between them again, reigniting what they had just fought for on stage as they stepped off the stage. Applause ringing in their ears like the sweetest song. Nancy spotted Jake and Lily weaving through the crowd, their faces alight with pride. They pushed up beside the girls, beaming with excitement. That was incredible. Lily shouted over the noise, her words bubbling with energy. Not just incredible, but inspiring. Jake added, his enthusiasm infectious. You two were phenomenal. It felt magical, Marie replied, her voice still trembling from the high of the moment. But we need to build on it. We're going to create something special. Lily's eyes sparkled. I want to help. I have a friend who draws. What if we gave them a space to share art and stories too? Everyone should have a voice, Jake declared, his expression fierce. In that instant, an overwhelming feeling filled the air. Unity. Nancy's heart swelled. This was it. They were not alone in this fight to be heard. Together, they could create a community centered around love, acceptance, and fearless expression. Just as their plans began to blossom, a figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the stage. It was Miss Parker, the elderly janitor who always seemed to be lurking around the theater with her mop and bucket. At that moment, she stepped into the light, her presence commanding but gentle. I overheard you, she said, her voice steady despite her frail appearance. What you're aiming to do, it's beautiful. This world needs more voices like yours. There was a hush as the girls turned to her. Miss Parker continued, I've seen many lost dreams in this place. But change can rise from that darkness. I'd like to contribute. I've lived through quite a bit, and I have stories to share. The four began to huddle tighter, their heads close together as they exchanged ideas. With each suggestion, the vision for a community grew clearer. Nancy felt excitement pulse through her veins. They were creating something vibrant, a tapestry of stories and artistry. As they spoke of how to reach the community, Nancy's mind was abuzz with possibility. But, deep within, she sensed a shadow lurking. What if no one comes? She murmured, almost lost in her thoughts. Then we'll learn and grow from it, Marie declared, her resilient spirit shining once more. We can't force others to find their voice, but we can show them it's okay to try. With that, their conversation resumed, transforming into laughter and plans. Soon, the nervous anticipation surrounding their dreams melded into hope and determination. Just as the night began to conclude, Nancy glanced once more at Miss Parker, who quietly watched the group with a knowing smile. I think we should call it Voices United, Nancy suggested suddenly, the name rolling off her tongue like an anthem. Perfect, Marie agreed, eyes sparkling with encouraged ambition as they all nodded in agreement. The reality settled in. They were on the cusp of something transformative, not just for themselves, but for everyone. But as excitement hung thick in the air, a single thought gnawed at Nancy. How would they draw out the shy and reluctant among them? Little did they know. A chance encounter was just around the corner that would change everything. The air throbbed with possibilities as Nancy, Marie, Lily, and Jake moved to the outskirts of the theater, excitement coursing through them. They were ready to take on the world, or at least their little piece of it. But beneath the surface, questions lingered like shadows. How would they bring in those hesitant voices? How would they convince others to join them in sharing their truths? As if sensing their concerns, Miss Parker drifted closer, her soft eyes sparkling with wisdom. You know, she began thoughtfully, it's often the quietest souls who have the loudest stories. They just need a gentle nudge, like a push in the right direction. Lily piped up, her face glowing with enthusiasm. Yes, dear. Sometimes all we need is to feel safe enough to speak. This she gestured to the group is a space of trust. It becomes a home for those who feel lost. Nancy felt a soothing revelation wash over her. There was comfort in Miss Parker's belief. Perhaps they all just needed to create a sanctuary, a space where hesitation could melt away. They could offer warmth to fill the gaps where fear resided. "Let us host a small gathering first," Marie proposed, her voice steady and calm. "We could make it casual, just an invitation to share whatever is on their hearts." "Yes," Nancy affirmed, heart racing. "We can make it a potluck. Everyone brings a dish and a story. Maybe they won't even realize they're sharing." "Food is always a good icebreaker," Jake chuckled, the thought lightening the mood. "That could really work," Lily exclaimed. "Just imagine everyone gathering over shared meals and taking turns expressing themselves. It would feel like family." As ideas blossomed, a plan formed tentatively, but undeniably present. Miss Parker nodded approvingly, her smile encouraging. "Wonderful. Start with what you have. Words and food are just the beginning of understanding each other." With casual notes and lively exchanges, they set to work, ideas flowing as freely as laughter. Each one quipping in, creating ground rules for the gathering. Respect, active listening, and most importantly, no judgment. They would carve out space where each voice could echo, no matter how quiet. Excitement flared as they left the theater, brimming with ideas. However, as the stars twinkled overhead, Nancy still felt that twinge of apprehension. What if no one came? What if the voices they were trying to amplify never showed up? "Remember," Marie reminded her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's about the journey. Even if it's just us, we're making an impact." "But what happens when we put ourselves out there?" Nancy asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. "What if no one responds?" Before Marie could answer, a commotion at the edge of the parking lot caught their attention. A small group of kids, some no older than 6, were running around playing. One little girl, her blonde hair dancing in the wind, stumbled and fell to the ground, tears welling in her eyes. Nancy instinctively rushed over, followed closely by her friends. "Hey there, are you all right?" she asked gently, kneeling beside the child. The girl sniffed, brushing dirt from her knees, but it soon became clear she wasn't just hurt. She looked up at Nancy with trembling lips, struggling to voice her feelings. I was playing." Feeling an unexpected connection, Nancy took a breath. "It's okay. You can tell me. Sometimes it's really hard. I senti it." Suddenly, the girl's twin brother appeared beside her. "She gets scared. Sometimes it's hard for her to talk," he declared. His small fists clenched, Nancy's heart squeezed. It reminded her of herself. She knew all too well the struggles of finding voice in a bustling world. Looking back at Marie and the others, she sensed an unspoken understanding forming between them all. "We're all a little scared, right?" Marie said, joining the moment. Then, Nancy asked, "Would you both like to come to our gathering? We're here to listen." As they processed the idea, Nancy found herself thinking, how would these small voices change their big plans? In an unexpected twist, she realized they might hold the key to unlocking the very transformation they yearned for. As her heart raced with the unfolding potential, she felt hope spark within her once again. But could they really help these children find their voice? The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow across the community center, where Voices United was about to embark on its first gathering. Anticipation bubbled as Nancy, Marie, Jake, and Lily busily arranged chairs in a circle, splashes of color from paper decorations fluttering gently in the breeze. The small space felt electric, a sanctuary taking shape where stories could breathe and dreams could linger. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, the first 2 kids arrived. The twins from the parking lot, Julia and Max, clutched their mother's hands tightly, but their wide eyes shone with curiosity. Nancy hurried to greet them, her smile genuine and inviting. "Welcome. We're so glad you came." Max shuffled closer to his sister, but Nancy knelt down to their level. "This is a safe place, just like I promised. We'd love to hear your stories." Julia looked down, swirling her toe in the carpet, while Max said, "I like stories about heroes." "Me too." Lily chimed in, her excitement infectious. What if we all share a hero story tonight? She glanced at Jake, who nodded enthusiastically, knowing well how much the twins had struggled with their own fears. As the group continued to arrive, more kids filled the room. The sound of laughter spilled out, mingling with nervous chatter. Adults loomed nearby, offering encouragement before retreating to give their children space. With the chairs arranged in a big circle, Nancy stood tall at the front and cleared her throat, her heart racing. Okay, everyone, this is our first Voices United gathering. We're all here to share and listen. She began, her voice steady. This isn't just about stories. It's about finding our voices together. Remember, you can share anything. No pressure. The kids exchanged glances, some visibly nervous, but a quiet energy pulsed through the air. For Julia and Max, the idea of sharing was daunting. Yet there was a flicker of hope in their eyes as each encouraged smile met them. Max took a deep breath. Once, I saved my sister from a spider. Laughter rippled through the room, breaking the ice with warmth. They all leaned in, eager for more. As more kids shared their fragments of bravery, vulnerabilities, and laughter, the room transformed into a tapestry of connection. Julia eventually raised her hand, a gesture infused with newfound courage. I want to tell a story too, she whispered, her cheeks warming under a veil of support. She shared her own tale of being scared but learning to swim during summer camp, the fear that felt like an anchor now a distant memory. A wave of applause rippled through the crowd, her voice soaring brighter with each encouraging clap. The power of sharing breathed life into the room as each child spoke. Nancy's heart swelled with joy, witnessing the sparks of courage flying. The evening began to feel like an orchestra of voices harmonizing, blending stories of small victories with dreams yet to unfold. But as they neared the end, Nancy felt the need to encompass their remarkable evening with a story of her own. With heartfelt determination, she stood, addressing the room. I want to share my journey too, how I found my voice when I thought I lost everything. She glanced at her children, their pride giving her strength to continue, unearthing her authentic connection. With warmth and sincerity, Nancy spoke about her struggles, how life had dimmed her dreams, but the love of her children and community, like the tender stories they had shared, had rekindled a flame inside her heart. Voices united. They were all deeply bonded in that powerful, unspoken promise of acceptance. When she finished, an explosion of applause erupted, mingled with cheers from the children. The room felt electric, and tears glimmered in Nancy's eyes as she took in the moment the triumphs of everyone lighting the way for each other. As the gathering wrapped up, Julia and Max clung tightly to their mother, wide smiles on their faces as they glanced at Nancy and her kids. Can we come back? Max asked eagerly. Every week, if you'd like. Nancy smiled, her heart thumping. With pride, surrounded by new friends filled with courage and stories waiting to be told. That evening transformed not only a room but a community. The children had found their voices, expressing fears and dreams among friends, while Nancy and the others laid the foundation for a vibrant tapestry of unity, connection, and shared hope. This was just the beginning, and they all knew it. Every voice mattered, and together, they had begun a movement. And as they stepped out into the night, stars twinkling above, Nancy felt a newfound sense of purpose lingering in the air. They had created a space where every whisper could grow into a roar. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. Now is the time for you. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss exclusive stories that inspire transformations just like this one. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and spread these empowering messages far and wide. Comment below and share your reactions and feelings about this ending. What inspired you? And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support is the heartbeat of our community, and together we can amplify every voice.